Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We sure are.
And we're excited today. We have Alex Urbina with us. He's a shamanic practitioner, energy alchemist, spiritual healer, author, and speaker. So, welcome, Alex. We're excited that you can join us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, we did a little teensy tiny bit of your bio. Can you tell us kind of how you got on this path and what you're doing with the energy, body connections, those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. It started three lifetimes ago. I was a shamanic healer, and in those three lifetimes, as activated spiritually with gifts to help people in my community and in the village with medicine and counseling. I didn't do any personal development work in those lifetimes. And so at the end of my lives, all three of them, I suffered at the end of my life. It was either alcoholism or I pushed away my family and isolated myself. And in one of my most recent meditations about 5 years ago, I was shown that in this lifetime, I chose to do the personal development work first on this journey here as a human being. And then they showed me that after I did the personal development work and the healing and the conscious awakening and the human development, that I was going to reclaim my shamanic roots in my 50s. And it's exactly what ended up happening. About 5 years ago, I had a very powerful um, meditation, which I hadn't meditated, even though I was spiritually activated about 15 years ago. I never really meditated. And it wasn't until COVID, during COVID times, one of my youngest daughters invited me to the backyard to meditate. And I said, sure, no problem. So I went to the backyard and I started meditating. And I got my first visit from my higher self, popped into a meditation, basically showed me that my coaching business and my transformational training business and working with teens and conscious parents was going to now pivot and transition into reclaiming my shamanic roots. And I was going to go on a healer's journey. And I've been on that journey ever since. And it's an incredible ride. Every day is a different experience. I'm learning at a rapid rate. To me, I'm more remembering, but it's still new to me in this lifetime, and it's pretty profound. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Um, Recently, I got activated with the ability to scan people's energy bodies to figure out what it is that they have in that energy field. And I'm also able to transmute that energy from whatever lower vibrational frequency into unconditional love. And I found that by doing so, those people's human bodies started to heal themselves. So even though I call myself a healer, I don't see myself as a healer because I believe everybody is their own healer. I just hold that higher frequency of the healed self for people that need that. And then if they match that frequency, then together in a partnership with my transmuting of that energy and transforming it into a higher vibrational frequency, and with their belief that they can heal themselves, then they get the result. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow.
Well,
That's amazing. So do you see the energy then on people, or do you hear it, or how do you get the messages for that?
Yeah, so I don't have my clair isn't to hear or see. Mine's more of a knowing. And the way that I activate it is by using a dowsing tool. I use a pendulum. And so what I
okay.
do is I connect to my higher self, and then I call the person's higher self in, and then I ask their higher self. I have a series of about 80 different questions of different things that can be blocked energetically in the energetic body, and also questions that the physical that can show up manifesting in physical symptoms. Then I ask those questions. So I have about 80 questions that I ask the person's higher self, and then I get yes or no's. And then as the yes or no's are coming through, my intuition is already coming up with the next question. So basically, what I do is by asking questions, I narrow down the possibility until I've gotten it narrowed down to the point where I'm already confirming what somebody has in their energy body that needs to be cleared or is causing any type of mental, psychological, emotional, or physical suffering.
Wow.
If can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess my headphone came off. Sorry.
It happens.
Yeah.
So does that help then with self-limiting beliefs with people? Like do you find that sometimes people have these limiting beliefs of what they're doing and that goes into their bodies and creates this friction in their bodies?
1,000%. It all starts with belief. Really, we're manifesting our own sickness, our own illness and diseases with. Let me see if I can narrow it down. It's usually limiting beliefs, trauma, unhealed traumas, or unprocessed or transmuted traumas. Also, suppressed emotions. So there's kind of about 5 or 6 main things that are the root cause of all of our dysfunctions and all of the things that are manifesting in some type of suffering. But once you get to those main root causes, and I'm able to identify them and then transmute them and transform them and clear them out of the energy body, now somebody with their own intentions can start to heal themselves. So what I'm discovering is a lot of the holistic practices, including the ones that I'm involved in, like behind me, you see we have what's called the harmonic egg. I do sound baths. I'm a Reiki master. I believe that a lot of those holistic healing modalities are beautiful and they're wonderful tools. However, what I'm learning now is that they can only peel off maybe the top 4 or 5 layers of energetic blockages or things that are in the way. But what I'm realizing in this journey is that there's more darker, denser, more stubborn energies that have a more rigorous commitment to using us as a host to feed off power wise. I guess apparently our life force is a commodity in the universe, and there's certain entities or consciousness or beings or energies, whatever you want to call them, that when they vibrate and resonate at a lower frequency of one of us humans, we attract them to us, they attach themselves to us, and then they can feed off of our life force. They use us in some sense to be relevant in their own awareness and through their own consciousness.
I believe in that. I believe that because I've always had the darker side with me too, here and there. And everybody says, "Oh, just go with the angels and things like that." But when you have them come to you, like I do, I'm a Reiki master too. When you have them coming to you, you have to deal with them. You can't just let them sit there. Do you find?
What's the question?
Okay, when you're dealing with some negative energies, okay, the darker ones, sort of thing, you can't just let them sit there. You have to deal with them. You can't just leave them there. Is that what you're doing, right?
I clear them out. I transmute them and transform them back into love. To me, everything is anything that's dark or lower vibration. They're just separate from the light. They just have gotten a little further on down into the dark path, and I just bring them back to the light. And when I do that, it seems to manifest physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically in a positive. So that's all I do. I don't judge them. I don't give them power. I just neutrally, when I spot them or identify them, I convert them basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, it's very cool. And so then when you're working with people with that, are you also teaching them how to bring that love into their life so that as they kind of walk away from the healing with you, that they're able to do some of these things for themselves?
The limited time that I do have with them, I try to give them as much as I can, but I'm also aware of, working with people for over 30 years, you can only give people so much. You can't cram down a lifetime of tools and insights. So I try to give them my everything. When I work with people, I give them my 1,000%. I give them my whole heart, I give them all my love, all my wisdom, because I want to empower people to step into that role where they decide and realize that they are powerful and they are sovereign, and they can heal themselves, and then that they learn how to do it for themselves. I'm in the business of healing people so they can be their own leaders, not create more followers or people that are needy of me. But I want to empower people to stand in their own power and learn how to do it for themselves. However, as much as I want that, I can't force people or make people to get to certain levels that they're not ready for. So I try to meet people where they are and give them what I can. And and I find that most people, when they're excited about it and it resonates with them, they absorb what they can and take what they can and learn. And it's a process, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I would think that, and I would think because when you're healing, I think is a growth thing, and I always think of it like sort of like a spiral, right? So it some of this stuff comes back to us at different ages and different times in our life. So I think healing is always something that we're going to be consciously doing. And so I love what you say there because when you meet somebody at where they're at, you know, and give them the tools so that they can move forward. That's great because then when they come back to you and they're like, okay, now I'm at this spot. Now how do I work through this? So what do you see that a lot of people maybe, I don't want to say doing wrong, but what do you think that there's something that people should be aware of when they're kind of going through their day-to-day life when it comes to energy in our bodies?
Wow, there's so many things I can meet at that question, and I love that question. Today I was working with a person, and I'm only going to speak on it because it's what happened today, and I think it's relevant. Um, what I've been learning, both as a life coach and a lifelong learner myself, and have given myself permission to face all my challenges, to have the courage to look at the things that are I don't want to look at, and to face those things, overcome them, challenge them, and evolve as a human being in the personal development side. What I'm also learning now as a shamanic healer is there's two different types of healing for me. I can see that there's a back end healing and a front end healing. And the back end healing is all of the Reikis, the yogas, the breath work, the harmonic egg, the sound baths, all of those type of holistic tools that we need for back end healing. The front end healing is learning, discovering, evolving to the point where you're able to master your ability to perceive the world in a more empowering way, rather than the way that you've been interpreting your reality that's causing the stress and the anxiety and the things that you have to heal in the first place. So when I'm working with somebody and they're both doing back end healing and front end healing with me, I'm coaching people and teaching them how to interpret their life in a more empowering way so that they're less stressed. They have less anxiety, less resistance, less emotional traumas. So to me, if you're doing front end healing and back end healing and you're doing it consistently on both sides, eventually you get to a state or a stage where through your perception, you're able to interpret the world as though you're in resistance to nothing, and you're allowing everything to happen, and you're able to see that everything is happening for you, not necessarily to you. And then you're causing less low vibrational frequencies in your body to have to deal with. I don't know if that's making sense or not.
It is. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, it does make
And so
sense.
a lot of people, what I'm realizing is, if there's a lot of people, because I've had people come to me and go, Alex, I've been healing this issue for 30 years. And I can tell that based on the way that they interpret their life or the way that they see reality, 90% of that interpretation is what's causing the things that they have to keep healing for 30 years. But when I sit with somebody and we go scenario to scenario, and I'm able to open up a more empowering way to interpret that scenario and create that reality that is positive, then they're not having that stress or anxiety or the anger or the frustration, or they're not having those negative experiences. So I can attest to when you're working on the front end part and clearing the back end part, you eventually get to a stage in your life where you're not causing your own issues that you need to keep healing anymore. It slowly starts to be less and less, to the point where you're just always now in a constant flow, in the state of grace of love, and you're unattached. You're not resistant to anything. You're allowing everything to be what it is, and you're just deciding how you want to, what you want to do with it. Where do I want to go with this situation now, rather than, oh my God, why is this happening, and this shouldn't be happening like that. All of that gets eliminated once you start working on the way that you see the world, the way you interpret your own reality.
So when you work with people, you say you have 80 questions that you ask. Okay. Do you ask those 80 questions when you're working with the people, or do you do that before you work with them?
So once I get someone's permission to scan them, um, I've already checked in with their higher self. Usually when people come to me, what I found out now, in the beginning, I used to ask their higher self, do I have permission to, scan them, clear them? That confirmation with their higher self. I used to ask in the beginning, do I have permission to scan them and to clear them? I just started almost 100%. I was getting yes, yes, yes. Then the next question came after maybe the 30th or 50th person. Every time they come to me, is that automatic permission? So then I got it 100% yes. So usually when someone reaches out to me, I automatically have permission, because it's their seeking help, and it's them asking for the help. So what I'll do is I usually get now the human being to give me permission to scan them. When that happens, I kind of just do it on my own. So we make the agreement, and then I go into my own meditation, get centered, get grounded, call their higher self in, and then I just go down the series of questions. And then I'm kind of trying to paint a picture of what their energy body looks like, so that later on we can get on a Zoom call and I can show them the results. And I just go down every single one of them. And then I have to explain to them what it is. You have this negative entity. These are what negative entities are. You have non-beneficial spirits. This is what that looks like. You have negative energetic cords. These are what cords look like. So I'm also educating people, because people might not necessarily know that they have energetic cords. Maybe they've never heard that for the very first time. So I'm doing a lot of explaining, a lot of teaching as I'm giving them the information. Then after I do a session with them, explaining to them that, then I just ask them, if you want to move forward, I can clear you. If you want to wait, you can wait. If you want to take this information and go work with a different healer, this is my service. This is where I'm at. So maybe 7 out of 10 times I'll get the person that will want me to clear them, and then we just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So do you go, when you're doing it, are you going way back, like to their childhood and things like that with some people? Sorry, I have a cold, so like, are you going way back into their childhood, like in order to get some of these entities to clear them? Is that how far back you go sometimes?
So when I clear somebody, it's a custom experience. I go wherever I need to go. Sometimes I have to go in the past. So I'll give you an example. I had a client that she had a very violent sexual attack in her teens, and it was causing lots of trauma. And I tried several things, several ways to clear her, and it finally took for me to have her visualize that experience again on the phone with me. And I closed my eyes and went into my meditation with her on the phone and went back to that time where the person stepped into the room, and then I had to surprise that person and take care of that person in that meditation, going back in time. When I did that, it caused my client to be able to flee in that scenario, so she didn't have that experience. And then what happened was 3 or 4 days later, all of that trauma started to release itself. So I go wherever I need to go to figure out how to release whatever it is that's causing people suffering, because that's my commitment. That's really ultimately why I'm doing this, is to end suffering for people that have decided that, one, they don't have to suffer the rest of their life, they don't want to suffer the rest of their life, and or that they've learned the lesson that came with whatever the suffering was there to teach them. So to answer your question, I go wherever I need to go to figure it out. And it's an ongoing journey. Like, I'm learning every day with every new client. And it seems like Spirit's always bringing me the right clients, the perfect clients to work on every single time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. So with it, so what I'm hearing then, or what I envision when you're talking about it, is almost like when you go back into some of these traumas, or maybe you're doing it in the present or in their past lives, it's almost kind of detaching them from the trauma so that they can really start that healing, as opposed to being so connected to what happened that they can't, they've just got the resistance to the healing. Would that be
For
some?
her, for that client, that's what the case was. But that was, every day I'm getting stronger, more powerful, and more effective. So there's certain things that I no longer do because I don't need to do them anymore. But majority of the time, all I'm doing is just transmuting those energies and then transforming them into love. So I want to say 90% of the time that works. It just clears it out for them. But I also have to get the person's okay. Like, I ask specific questions before I clear someone. And the questions I ask them is, are you ready to end suffering? Yes. Are you willing to do the work? Yes. Are you willing to look at some of the things? Yes. So when I get their yeses, it's almost like the process has already started. And then at that point, it's just a matter of now having somebody to step in and transmute it for you. So it's a combination. It's not necessarily all me. It's a partnership. So when the person is giving me their yes, it's their declaration that they're done with it. And so then I just happen to be there at that right time in partnership with them to clear it. So it's a team effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. Do you think that we will ever get to a point in humanity where we don't have this resistance to healing and we can come from a perfect place of love?
Oh, I've never been asked that question. It's a beautiful question.
Sorry, things pop into my brain that I
No,
just.
it's great. No, it's great. Because I'm remembering that we're spiritual beings that chose this human experience on earth, where there's relativity and you have to have love and hate, or love and fear, to exist. um I think perfect love isn't the absence of the fear. To me, perfect love is remembering that love and fear are both here to be in service to us, and it's just a matter of us evolving to the state where we no longer choose to experience fear in those harsh conditions. Meaning, if I've gone through all the different grades, from kindergarten to college, why would I want to go back to kindergarten again if I've already been there? So I feel like once we've already gone through all the suffering and the many multiple, lifetimes, we'll eventually get to a stage where we're all just collectively are at the high. We're all in college now, so there won't be no more bullying you and taking your lunch, lunch money. And it'll just be where we're all more mature, more evolved, and it'll be higher levels of consciousness and more love and consideration and compassion. I don't necessarily see it in my time, but I'm still committed to creating it in my lifetime. So that's the drive that I have, whether I get to experience it or not. I think it's what myself and all healers that are authentic in their journey want to get to. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you think, is that a question? What do you think would be something that people could do day to day that would help them get less in resistance to having to have all kinds of healing in their life? Like, is there something that they can, like, I know that we do, and it's great that because we have, like mom's a Reiki master, so she can do the Reiki and you can transmute these things to, help do these healings as well. So, which I think is wonderful. So, is there something though that they can start maybe practicing at home that would make them more open to this?
Yeah, I would say I would invite people to decide that they're courageous enough to embark on their own personal transformation, their own hero journey of learning and discovering everything about themselves. Why do I think like this? Why did I choose that? Where was I choosing from? So being more consciously aware of the choices they're making, where they're choosing from, and then learning from that, and then practicing how to make higher choices. If you're just making higher choices every single day, choices that love sponsors, more compassion, more self-love, more forgiveness, more acceptance. And so the more that we're consciously evolving, what happens is once you advance to that stage or you graduate to that grade, you can't go backwards. So it would be just to keep continuing to evolve consciously, spiritually, and practice more loving ways of being, authentic, forgiving, compassionate, understanding, and start first with yourself. Because I know a lot of us, we grew up in homes or families or certain ethnicities, races where our parents have taught us to to be good to others first, and we don't take care of ourselves. There's a lot of people out in humanity that are giving, but they're not giving to themselves first. You have to start learning how to take care of yourself first and give from overflow. The greatest
Yeah.
love you can give is from overflow. It's loving myself so much that I have so much spilling out that it's like, all right, I have so much overflow. Who wants some? It should be coming from that state, not coming from lack and focusing out on others and loving so many people outside of yourself that you're not loving yourself, because that also has some drawbacks to it as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I find the more that you practice like self-love and really getting in touch with like our hearts, and I find that we radiate that out to other people and we help them just by doing that in general, just because of the way that we're showing up more authentically, like you said. So I love what you said there. Heard a thing somebody was saying, how they always say you can't drink from an empty saucer or cup or whatever. But they were saying they like to say the saucer because then that means it's overflowing. And so they're, drinking from the saucer because that means that they've shared so much with other people. It just really struck with me because I'm like, oh, that's so great, right?
It
I love
is.
that. I'm probably going to steal that from you.
Absolutely,
So, so
100%.
in
I wish
other
I could
words,
give the
yeah.
proper.
So in other words, don't drink from the cup because the cup is mine, but you can drink from the saucer, right? Because as long as people are drinking from the saucer, then it means that you're
Filling it.
always filling it up. You're always,
Yeah.
I call it like manifesting or summoning from within yourself.
Yeah.
So you're the creator of your own self love. So you're just creating it. And then what happens is, as you love yourself so much, you become the beacon of self love. You become the example. The same way that all of the ascended masters learned how to love themselves so much that they were radiating it because of who they were being. They were being love. They were being self-love. They were being self-forgiveness. So when you're being those inner qualities, it radiates from you. It's an energy. It's a frequency. It's a resonance, and it's not necessarily what you say or what you do, but it's who you're being. And so that, to me, that's what true medicine is. It's not what you can say to someone or what you do. It's necessarily who you're being when you're in the presence of somebody who really needs to experience that frequency.
Yeah, true. Is it possible to reach people that do have addictions or things like that through what you do, that maybe could help them to find their way to find some bliss in their life?
Absolutely. So a lot of times the clients that I work with that have addiction, it's the same formula. When I do an energy scan on them, majority of people that have addictions, they have darker frequencies attached to them. They all have different names. Some have the negative entity frequency, some have the demonic frequency, some have poltergeist frequencies. Some have, these types of frequencies that have their own consciousness, and their goal is to constantly steal life force from you, or they will block your chakras. They will block your immune system. They will even try to affect your breath, so every breath you're taking, you're not taking in enough oxygen. They'll dehydrate you. But if you have any type of insecurities that you haven't healed, they'll feed off that until the point where, because you're not taught or trust the process of doing the healing underneath and releasing those emotions, they'll feed off that to the point where you now, as a human being, start looking for outside sources to ease the pain. And before you know it, you activated now some type of substance that you've decided is what is going to help you feel better. And then now you're addicted to that substance. So to be honest with you, I don't care who I'm scanning, who I'm clearing. It's not about necessarily the symptom. So whether you have cancer, or you have addiction, or you have MS, or you're bipolar, it all comes back down to the energy body. Your energy body has lower vibrational frequencies that are at deeper levels. Let's say it's level 12 or level 15. Well, some of these healing modalities, you're peeling off 3 layers, 5 layers, 7 layers, but some of the root causes are deeper, darker, more stubborn, lower vibrational frequencies that are bunkered in, and they're using you as a host, and they don't want to give you up. They have invested interest in staying in there. So it takes somebody that can go in there and clear them out, or remove them, or cross them over, or whatever it takes.
Well, so thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
No, go ahead.
No, I've always find it interesting dealing with people with addictions and things like that, because they do have that darker side of themselves. And some of them are really difficult to try to get into them in order to help remove those blocks. I like the idea of what you're doing on the front side. I mean, I do the Reiki. I do have my spirits that come through on my readings and things like that, which I'm really grateful for. And it helps me a lot with helping to block people from situations that they're going through. But maybe I should go a little deeper than what I'm doing too. So
yeah, if you go
for
deeper,
that.
and if you can ask your guides to show you if they have darker, denser, more stubborn energies that need to be removed, and you can remove those, then you don't. How do I explain this? When you go to the root cause of something, you don't have to go up the ladder. But if you go 4 or 5 layers down, and you're working at the 4th layer, then you might have to pull the 4th layer off, and then the 5th layer, and then the 6th layer. But if you just go down to the root and remove the root, all the other layers just take care of themselves. So a lot of times when I get down to the root and I clear the root out, then it's just a matter of now transmuting the spirit of addiction from the body, and the root cause or the source has already been removed. So that frequency is not constantly just being, it's not being, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not in the energy body anymore.
It's
They
gone.
released
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because you remove the source. So I'll give an example. Some people have, a lot of my clients that have diabetes. I found a correlation to people that have diabetes or any type of issues. If I scan them and they have spirit possessions, human spirits that died but didn't cross over, and they were wandering or lost souls in another dimension here on earth, then they can attach themselves to you as a human being if they resonate with your frequency. So a lot of people are walking around with, 15, 30, 60 other spirit beings that have gotten into their energy body, their energy field. So we're walking around with these other spirits on us, and they're not necessarily causing major havoc. But let's say I have a client that has diabetes for 30, 40 years and can't figure out how to heal it, and I find they have 50 spirit possessions. Then I'll ask their higher self, tell me, out of all of those 50 spirit possessions, how many of them had diabetes? It's going to be a high number. It's going to be about 40, 42, 47. So when I cross those spirits over into heaven or the great beyond or whatever you believe in, that where they're supposed to go next, then they take all of their addictions with them. They take all of their diabetes with them. Now all I have to do is just clear out the frequency of diabetes in your energy body, and now that frequency is not there. But if I clear out the frequency of diabetes from your energy body, but the spirit possessions are still attached to you with their frequencies, it's still there. So if I remove the root cause, which is all the spirit possessions, and they take their diabetes frequency with them, then I can just clear out the rest of it that was still there. And then now there's no diabetes frequency in the body, in the energy body. Then it just takes a matter of time now for your physical body to start recalibrating. And then within a month, 3 months, 6 months, your diabetes is no longer a symptom in your physical body anymore.
Wow. That's heavy duty.
That makes sense. And it makes sense, really, right? Because, I mean, it is just dis-ease in our body, right?
That's right.
We do create so much of that just in the way that we think, or as you said, like when you have these beings that come in. Is there a way that a person could protect themselves from getting some of these attachments from some of these lower energies?
Yeah. So what I found is that your life force has to be above 3,000 plus 3,000. So I'll give you an example. If I were to scan both of you and just ask your higher self, what is their life force? You may or may not be in the positive or in the negative. If you're a negative 20 or a negative 50, or you could be a positive 80 or positive 1,500, but you have to be above positive 3,000 and above before you start attracting these lower negative frequencies to you. So it's a matter of having a very high, very strong, positive life force, and you have to have a high vibrational frequency, meaning your practice. You have to have a practice of high vibrational living. So with those two things, I've noticed people that have really high life forces, plus 10,000, plus 20,000, and they're vibrating high and have a high practice, they can walk in a haunted house, or they can walk in, to the darkest places, and they can't attract those things. Or if they try to attach themselves to you, they can't hang on very long. They can't be in your frequency because you're vibrating too high and your life force power is too strong. So when people ask me that question, they say, I say, you got to raise your life force. So a lot of times I'll have healers that'll come to me. They're very powerful, gifted people that are making a huge difference for people, but they also can have a very low life force. So a lot of times when I clear them out and I raise their life force, they just take off because they already have a high vibrational practice in place. They have high ethics. They have a huge heart, so they're already loving, and they just didn't know that they had these clinger on, what I want to use.
Hang on.
They've had these hitchhikers on them for 10, 20 years. Some people, you can attract a spirit possession or a demonic frequency when you're 9 years old, 4 years old. And once you pick up one, it seems like you slowly attract a few more every year. So if you had one when you were 9, then by the time you're 12, you might have 4. And by the time you're 15, you have 7. Before now you're 50 years old, you have 65 of them or whatever. So once you clear that, once you do a full energy clearing, then everything just raises. Your vibrational frequency takes off, your life force increases, and then now you're off and running. Now you already have the practices in place to stay trajectorying up.
Mhm.
But some people that don't have those practices, I have to clear them and try to educate them and empower them to start putting some of those higher ways of living into place. They have to start somewhere. They have to start doing something. So a lot of times when I clear someone and I know that they have a low level consciousness, or they're not highly evolved, or don't have a spiritual practice, I'll encourage them. From this point forward, you want to start doing some work. You want to start practicing being more loving, more forgiving, and raise your vibrational frequency with with positive thoughts, self-love, so that you can keep it going.
That makes sense to me. And I think,
That's me too.
as a spiritual practice, I'm not very big into the organized religion myself, but, not saying there's anything wrong with it. But for me, a spiritual practice just can be, spending that time in meditation, in nature, doing the things that we know and just bringing that love into our heart, I think is a really one. And then, communing with the source, whoever that may be for you, I think is just as relevant as if you are to go into a church or any other kind of organized religion. Would you agree with that? Or
1,000%. Yeah, just be a good human being. Every day try to be a version closer to what your higher self would be, which is loving, caring, compassionate, vulnerable, honest, authentic, courageous, all the high vibrational ways of being. Just practice those every day.
Right.
It's not about, we don't even have to use the word God. Just be a better human being every single day. Be present, be aware, be kind, mindful. But again, starting with yourself first, and then outward.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you've been given all these gifts as you've been going on, and it sounds like as you receive these gifts, you're elevating more and more up onto, you know, up, which is a good thing. So what do you think is going to happen for you here in 2025 or going forward? What do you think, or what do you hope are maybe some more gifts or some knowledge that you might receive?
I'm not even doing that anymore because I've been so flabbergasted by what's been unfolding that I stopped trying to anticipate and just allow it to unfold the way it is, because that's what's been working for me so far, is allowing myself from gratitude as I've been giving these upgrades. I just got an upgrade this morning because of the new moon, or the full moon. I get awakened, and every full moon, whether it's a couple days before on or a couple days after, by an owl that comes and visits me in my backyard. And that owl is one of my ancestors. She is a Native American Apache light warrior, spiritual light warrior, that comes and visits me and will upgrade me. So sometimes I'm out there at 4:30 in the morning when she wakes me up, or 5, and I stand out there and we connect and close my eyes, and I get my upgrades. And as long as I'm walking a path of love and light, I have to pre-qualify myself. And what I'm finding is that a lot of light workers, they can be connected to their higher self and really dialed in at some point. But what I'm finding is that a lot of them, if they don't stay in the light and continue to pre-qualify yourself, you can be disconnected to your higher self and to source. And then what happens is your spirit guides will step in to try for a little while to get you back connected to your higher self. And then if you still keep going a little bit further off the lighted path into the dark, then what happens is like these trickster spirits will come in, and then they'll connect to you, and then you're not necessarily being dialed in directly to source. So for me, I'm always pre-qualifying myself as much as I can, and I'm not taking it for granted, and really being mindful. I look at myself more as like a tool that I have to keep sharpening, and I have to keep pre-qualifying myself every day. So I do my own clearings, I do my own forgiveness, and I just keep doing the work and keep leveling up. But as far as hoping that something happens or wanting something to happen, I'm just allowing it to unfold, and I'm amazing myself. I'm amazed every time something new gets discovered or I'm able to do something. And I think that's the joy of it. It's the curiosity of, oh my God, this worked. Or I'll get a client that goes, hey, Alex, can you clear a path for me to go to this convention? Or sometimes I have a client who'll say, I'm going into a court I'm meeting my ex in court for custody of my kids, and can you do a clearing for me for my greatest good? Absolutely. And then I'll clear a path for their greatest good. I don't do any spells. I don't do like, hey, I don't do nothing like make this happen, make that happen, but it's always general, whatever's for their greatest good, bring it about for them. And then I let their higher self decide what's good for them or not. And then I'll just tell them, I cleared a path for you. Let's see what happens. And I'm shocked and more surprised every single time, because a lot of my clients are taken care of. They get favored because they're coming from a clean place. I would never do something if somebody wanted me to do something that was against my own morals, values, and principles. So it just surprises me every time somebody asks me for something. And if I don't have the answer, I'll say, I don't know, but let's try it, because trying something rather than doing nothing, it doesn't help. So you'll be surprised when you give yourself permission and believe you can create something. If you have the audacity to go down that path, you'll surprise yourself and you'll actually create something that's worth value.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, this hour is like just flowing right by. We've got so much information. So can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. So the name is Alex Urbina .com. ALEXURBINA. That's the starting point. So you go to my website. My website's designed in a way to either have you resonate with it or scare you off. And I always laugh, and I tell my wife, when you come to my website, either it's gonna resonate with you or it's gonna scare you. Because sometimes on there I'll put like, hey, if I have to go in and clear out some dark demonic frequencies from you, I'm gonna do that. So people that aren't at that level or are not open to that, they'll probably just go and then they'll swipe onto the next website. So the people that I work with, they kind of pre-qualify themselves by going to my website, and if we resonate with each other, then I'll get a call or get a message, and then we'll move forward in stages.
Yeah, that's the best way, I think, for sure. Well, we'll put
Right?
that in the show notes for people so that they can find you. So what if you had to leave a final thought with everybody, what would your final thought be?
My final thought would be that we don't necessarily have to suffer in this lifetime. Suffering is a choice, whether it's a conscious choice or unconscious choice. And I know it's a very delicate it's a very delicate situation, because people that are suffering, they don't want to suffer. And to hear somebody say suffering is a choice, it can rub people the wrong way and go, what do you mean this is a choice? Why would I choose to suffer? Why would I choose to go through this? But if you're open to the possibility that as spiritual beings, before we chose this human journey, as spirit beings, we were excited to come here to have experiences. And so we jumped at the opportunity to come on to this earth and take on a body that has cancer or has MS or has these challenges. Because as a spirit or as a soul, we're not judging anything. There's no right or wrong. There's only a way to experience ourselves. So if you're open to the possibility, you came here to have these experiences of suffering, but during that process, you decide, okay, I think I'm good now. I'm ready to now, and I've experienced it, and I don't choose experience anymore. I'm here to tell you, you can decide, and it's a decision. You just decide, I'm not going to suffer any minute more, and stand in that power and that sovereignty, make that commitment. And what will happen is by you making that decision, the right people will show up in your life to help you create a new timeline of
Sorry.
getting past all the suffering that you are ready to get past. And again, you're the healer. You can heal yourself. You just need permission, a permission slip, and you need a team of people that can help guide you through that process.
Well, that's
Beautiful.
wonderful. Oh.
Yeah, beautiful.
We really appreciate you being on with us and sharing your knowledge and walking us through everything, because I think it's really important for people to know that. And part of Mums and my mission with this podcast is to get that information out so people can live their best authentic life and come from
Well, I
a
can tell you that
love.
out of all the podcasts I do, this podcast and your questions were really great questions, because a lot of times I'll get people that great interviewers, but sometimes with their questions, they can lead me down a path. And when I get off the call, I'm like, man, I didn't really talk about anything that I really wanted to talk about. So your guys' questions were really on the money. It literally felt like you were just lobbing balls up for me to hit home runs. And that tells me that you guys, I love when you first came on and said, we don't have an agenda or written questions, and that you trusted your intuition to guide you. Because it felt really amazing to be led by you guys in this conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we really appreciate that, and we'd love to have you back, because I'm sure we could talk, go down so many different avenues with this. And I am always fascinated, and I know Mom is too, with the energy, the body connection to our energy source, and just how powerful our mind is and how we can just lean into that. So we'd love to have you back to go
Well,
further.
just know that I have in this conversation, I haven't even scratched the surface. So we could probably do 50 shows and have our own series. So anytime you want, or you feel like you want to, jump on a call, I'd love to continue. So yeah.
Perfect. Well,
we're thinking about the live things down the road too. So maybe you could come into one of our live YouTube where people call in and ask you questions and things like that.
I love that. Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing space with us today. And everybody else, we'll see you next time.
You bet you will.